Chocolate chip cookies exist because someone expected the chocolate to disappear. Ruth Wakefield was making butter drop cookies at her New England inn and assumed the chunks of baker's chocolate would melt into the batter the way they always had. They did not. The pieces held their shape in the oven, creating pockets of melted then reset chocolate inside each cookie, visible when you split one open. Her guests preferred this version to the original. Nestlé eventually bought her formula outright, and that same recipe still appears printed on every standard bag of their chocolate chips sold today. The potato chip has a revenge origin, or at least that is the most repeated version. A chef in Saratoga Springs sliced potatoes as thin as physically possible, not to perfect anything, but to frustrate a customer who kept complaining his fried potatoes were too thick. The slices went into hot oil, translucent, almost see-through before frying, and came out shattering instead of bending. The customer could not complain they were too thick anymore. Food historians debate the details, but the snack spread regionally under the name Saratoga chips and eventually grew into an industry worth more than $30 billion a year. Cheese almost certainly was not invented. It was found. Someone stored milk inside a bag made from an animal's stomach, and by the time they opened it, the liquid had separated into soft white curds floating in watery liquid. Animal stomachs contain rennet, a substance that causes milk proteins to clump together, especially when warm. The process was already done before anyone understood why. The same discovery appears to have been made independently across parts of Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia, which is why rennet remains the key ingredient in most aged hard cheeses made today, from Parmesan to cheddar. Champagne spent most of its early history being treated as a failure. The bubbles that built the entire industry were considered a defect, proof that something had gone wrong in the bottle. The wine came from the Champagne region of northern France, but the French spent decades trying to stop the fizzing, not celebrate it. What changed everything was English glass. Bottle makers in England were producing thicker, stronger glass than anything used in France, and French sparkling wine shipped into those bottles survived the pressure instead of exploding. The fizz became fashionable in England first, and by the time French producers started marketing it as a feature, it had already been a trend across the channel for years. The popsicle was left outside overnight by an 11-year-old. He had mixed flavored powder with water in a cup, left a stirring stick inside it, and forgotten about it on a cold night in the San Francisco area in the early 1900s. The next morning, the mixture had frozen solid around the stick. The stick created a handle, which meant the ice could be eaten without touching it directly. He kept the idea to himself for over a decade before selling the rights to a company that turned it into a product sold across the country. Leavened bread came from a mistake that took place